You guys, Erin here. I am back with another moon update for you, a very exciting new moon we're going to be talking about. We're having the last new moon of 2023 coming up here on Tuesday, December 12th. It peaks at 3:32 p.m. Pacific time. And part of the reason I'm saying exciting is because it's in the sign of Sagittarius. Okay, this is the sign of wisdom and optimism and faith and luck and philosophy and all kinds of wonderful things. And as with any new moon, this is a time to manifest new beginnings or growth that are related to this zodiac sign. And on a personal note, this is also exciting because, well, it's sad and exciting at the same time. This is the final last video you will see coming from this room right here. I am officially moving, and it's hilarious because I moved 2 days after this new moon, and this new moon takes place basically exactly conjunct my ascendant. Some of you know what that means. And another personal note, it's so interesting to be an astrologer and watch things unfold in your life and follow it on the chart. This was not planned, but I signed the contract to move into this place the day that, first of all, Saturn is in my house of home in the sign of Pisces. Okay. And the day Saturn went stationary in my house of home is the day I signed the contract for this place. And it's a cute little place. I'm very, very exciting. I'm definitely having to downsize a lot of things, but it's a big deal and I'm very excited about it. So anywho, c'est la vie to this background. Okay, so now, what I'm going to do in this recording, other than break down this sign of Sagittarius for you, is I'm going to be talking about certain parts of the body that are ruled by the sign of Sagittarius, because these parts of our body become more sensitive when the moon transits through the sign of Sagittarius, but especially because we've got Sun, Moon, and Mars in the sign of Sagittarius. Sign of Sagittarius rules a huge portion of the body, okay? So, of course, I'll also be talking about some potential herbal remedies to help support these parts of our body. I'm also going to be talking about gemstones that resonate well with this sign of Sagittarius. What I like to do, some of you know this by now, and I'm sorry to be repetitive for those of you who already do know this, but every single new moon, I pull out my journal, I write down the growth that I want to experience that is related to that zodiac sign. And then I like to take some gemstones that resonate well with the sign the moon is transiting through, or just the overall astrological forces that we're receiving. I put those on top of my journal, put that journal on a windowsill so that when the luminaries transit by, it's like my words, the spells I'm casting are making a stronger connection with those heavenly bodies. Okay. Now, I'm also going to be pulling up the chart and showing you some other prominent astrological forces that we're going to be receiving around this new moon. And it's actually a really interesting one because Mercury is going to go retrograde, what is it, like 8 hours after this new moon. So really interesting stuff going on here. I'm excited to share that with you guys. Okay, so first of all, the sign of Sagittarius, it's what we call the mutable fire sign. Now, when I say mutable, what I'm talking about is adaptability. I'm talking about an ability to be able to kind of adapt into new situations, hang out with all different types of people, that sort of thing. But in this element of fire, it's like wildfire, okay? All the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, they're all associated with energy, okay? The difference between them is Aries is the cardinal fire sign that projects forward with force, okay? Leo is the fixed fire sign that's like condensed heat, okay, like an oven. Well, Sagittarius being the adaptable, mutable fire sign, that's why I say it's like wildfire. I got that term from Judith Hill, which cracked me up as a Sagittarius rising. I could definitely be like wildfire sometimes. Okay, but it's ruled by Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter is considered the great benefic. Okay, Jupiter is the bringer of wisdom and faith and optimism and abundance, expanding the consciousness. It's like Jupiter is associated with like being the professor, okay? This sign that kind of knows. It's not necessarily a knowing, but rather seeing the whole grand big picture. Jupiter is this, I mean, whatever Jupiter touches, he'll make it a bigger deal. Yes, Jupiter can bring trouble into our lives, especially medically speaking. Sometimes Jupiter rules the arteries. There's all kinds of strange things that can go on with Jupiter. But for the most part, if Jupiter's just working independently, Jupiter can bring wisdom. Jupiter can bring faith. Okay. Now, who doesn't want to manifest more abundance and wisdom and faith and philosophy and abundance, all sorts of wonderful things into their life? This is the time to do it. Okay. Now, also the sign of Sagittarius. Well, it's represented by the archer. Okay. The archer who's kind of always out on an adventure, seeking something out. Also the archer who has high aims. Okay. The sign of Sagittarius can like set the aim high and go for it. It might get a little sidetracked along the way, but it's this sign that has this, I'm going after that. Okay. Also, the motto for the sign of Sagittarius is I see. Okay. And this has a very strong tendency to be able to foresee. Okay. We'll get to the gemstones a little later on in this recording, but turquoise is, I'll just mention this now. Turquoise is the dedicated zodiacal birthstone for the sign of Sagittarius, and turquoise can help to foresee, help people foresee. It's also a very protective stone, by the way. Had some very, very interesting experiences with turquoise over the past couple of years. Okay, so there's that. How do you want to grow in these ways? Do you maybe want to become more adaptable? Maybe you want a little bit more wildfire in your life. Maybe you want to go on adventures. This sign is also very strongly associated with long distance travel. Okay, if you think about the zodiac, the sign of Sagittarius over here, the sign of Gemini over here, they're opposite each other. Okay, now the sign of Gemini focuses in on the facts, is about short distance travel, short like mental function sort of thing, where opposite that Sagittarius is the long distance travel. You might see a lot of people who've got a lot of Sagittarius energy in their natal chart, or say a busy ninth house, or just they have a lot of strong Jupiter energy in their natal chart. A lot of these people will travel overseas or travel into like the, tribal areas, that sort of thing, to learn about other cultures and again, expand their consciousness. This is a sign that's kind of associated with, again, being the professor. Okay. Not necessarily, I mean, it can very strongly be associated with being a teacher, but not necessarily, say, like a elementary school math teacher or something like that. More like the professor who's teaching things that are above and beyond book curriculum, school book curriculum. In Vedic astrology, Jupiter, Sagittarius' ruler, is really the one that's most strongly associated with astrology, because it's like the, up in the sky, the all-knowing, the up, what's going on above and beyond just what's going on down here with all the little parts. Okay, so how do you want to grow in these ways? Maybe you want more abundance. Not only that, but if you are familiar with your natal chart, this is a huge benefit. Okay, you can see which area of your own life specifically this is manifesting through. Okay, now if you're using whole sign, which I really like working with the whole sign house system when I'm doing these lunar transits, but I also completely support using Placidus and Regiomontanus. It really just depends on what form of astrology I'm working with here when I, kind of switch between different house systems. But if you're using Placidus or really anything other than whole sign, you're going to need to see where 20 degrees Sagittarius, which house in your natal chart 20 degrees Sagittarius is coming through. If you're using whole sign, just look to see where the symbol for the sign of Sagittarius is. Could be coming through your house of finances, your house of relationships, your house of communication, your house of karma, your house of career, your house of advanced knowledge. There's all these different areas of your life that this is definitely has to be manifesting through one of them. When you get familiar with your natal chart, then you can see which area of your life is being activated by anything astrological. When you get a reading with me, I always offer you a free video recording, and especially if you get at least in a 1 hour session. I don't think we could do this in a half an hour, but I've done it in 1 hour, preferably the 90-minute session. We go through every single house in your natal chart so that you can always go back to the recording and see, if you hear an astrologer talking about the sign of Virgo or Pisces or whatever it is, you can go back to that recording and go, oh, geez, this is activating that specific area of my life. Not only that, but do you have anything in your natal chart near 20 degrees Sagittarius, or maybe trining that near 20 degrees Aries or Leo, or maybe opposing that at 20 degrees Gemini? There's all sorts of things that we can take this, what's going on up in the sky, and apply it into our own life. What I love about the new moons, though, is that you're setting an intention. It's giving you that. Of course, we experience all kinds of growth cycles all the time, ones that are just specifically related to our own natal chart, ones that are going on as a collective, ones that we just narrow down into our own life that's coming from the astrological forces going on above. Okay, now when we get a little familiar with these things, we are able to see what is going on in our own life. And what I was going with that is the new moon is setting the intention and knowing specifically how to apply that into your life. Let's say you have Sagittarius in your second house, your house of money. Well, this is the time where you would want to pull out your pen and a piece of paper, preferably a journal, and writing down, I am manifesting more abundance in the area of my life that has to do with my money, material possessions, and values. Okay. And just depends on where it's coming through your natal chart. Of course, if that's, I totally get it. For some people, that is just too much information for them. And if that's okay, I mean, if that's your choice, if that's what you want to stick with, it's perfectly okay. It's so much better to be working with just the sign of Sagittarius in and of itself than not doing any of this at all. I mean, I've been manifesting with the moon cycles for, I guess it's been like 9 years now, consecutively, every single time we have a new moon. I wouldn't continue to do this if I didn't see such incredible results from it. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull up the chart here so you guys know what you're working with here. All right, so first of all, for those of you who are new to my recordings, I work with geocentric Western astrology. So with that said, what we're looking at here is basically a snapshot of what we call the tropical zodiac at the time of this new moon. With geocentric, we put Earth right here in the middle of this thing. These guys right here are the symbols for the planets of the celestial bodies. Like here's Pluto, here's Mercury, here's the moon, here's the sun, here's Mars. When we go in the wheel a little way, these are the symbols for the zodiac signs that these things will be beaming through onto us on Earth at the time of this new moon. Now, as some of you already know, this is based on my location, okay? But see, here's the moon right here at 20 degrees Sagittarius and 40 minutes to be precise. And for everybody on Earth, the moon is going to be at 20 degrees, 40 minutes Sagittarius using Western astrology. Okay. But if you're taking the time to look this up in your own location, the moon could be down here. It could be over here. It could be the whole zodiac is going to move depending on your location. Okay. But so don't just try not to pay too much attention to the houses unless you happen to live near Santa Cruz, California. Okay. So first of all, here's the moon right here. Here's the sun right here. Any time that we have a new moon, it means that the sun and the moon are in the exact same spot. Okay. They're both at 20 degrees, 40 minutes Sagittarius. Now, that is in part why working with the new moons is so powerful, because it's the sun, who's the father, the moon, who's the mother, coming together to create it's like they're coming together to create a new force. I always call it an energetic baby that grows over the next 6 months until we have a full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. That's when sun and moon will be opposite each other and the moon will be in the sign of Sagittarius. Okay. So again, this sign of Sagittarius, optimism, faith, abundance, wisdom. I will say this though, we've also got Mars right here in Sagittarius. This is a lot of Sagittarius energy. And there's always going to be pros and cons to everything in astrology. Every single zodiac sign, every aspect, every house, every planet, everything in astrology that you're going to be able to find pros and cons to. Okay, now as a Sagittarius rising, I tend to focus on the optimistic stuff. Okay, but that's part of this sign of Sagittarius. It's the sign of faith. It's the sign that says, okay, let's look at the best side of this. When we focus on the cruddy stuff in life, it's like where focus goes, energy flows. Okay. So if you want to manifest more, faith that everything's going to be okay in your life, this is an excellent time to do it. Okay. But this sign of Sagittarius is like, again, wildfire. It can be kind of a spasmodic energy. Now, if you've got something in your natal chart, especially if you've got, say, Mercury near 20 degrees Sagittarius, say Mercury anywhere between 10 and 25 degrees Sagittarius, that Mercury rules our mental function. So that Mercury is getting lit up, and it might be abundance. It might be like, oh, I got faith all of a sudden. I want to go out and do things that are adventurous. Or it could be like, oh my gosh, I can't control my thoughts because it's wildfire is going on. Okay. And it doesn't just have to be Mercury. There's a lot of other things that this could be activating in your own life. For some Sagittarius risings, this actually could be like too much. Like, oh my gosh, I don't even know which direction to go in anymore. It's just, I want to go this way and that way at the same time. Or if your sun is in Sagittarius, this might be kind of like overkill of this mutable wildfire kind of energy. But again, it can also be filled with faith and abundance and luck and wisdom and optimism. Okay, so there's that. But this is overall the sun and the father coming together to create that energetic baby for us to work with. Okay, now also At 20 degrees Sagittarius, this puts us in the third decan of this energy, which actually gives it a little twist of Leo energy as well, which can be great because Leo's the fixed fire sign, which can help stabilize the energy just a little bit. Okay. So there's that. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to talk about Mars. So Mars is aggressive. Mars influences things like war. Okay. And Mars is wonderful. Mars influences action. Mars rules our muscles and our adrenal glands. Okay. Just based off of those things, you can get the idea as to how Mars works. It's like, boom, we got to go. If you look at the symbol for Mars, it's literally like it's trying to penetrate everything. Okay. Because Mars is masculine, dominant energy. And it quite literally is trying to penetrate everything. Okay. And this can be good. I know a lot of people who have Mars and Sagittarius in their natal chart are just so fun and just, it's like, just kind of flowing through life, like what's next sort of energy. Okay. But again, for some people, this might be overkill. It's like so much sporadic heat going on. But isn't that interesting? See, let me tell you something else about this sign of Sagittarius. I remember when I was first learning astrology, kind of trying to understand why this worked, because it's a fire sign, but it's cold outside well, at least for those of us in the northern parts of the world. Okay. It's the mutable fire, but all the mutable signs, Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo, they all come in the time of year right before we're going to change seasons. Okay. On December 21st, the sun will move into Capricorn. Capricorn is the cardinal earth sign. The cardinal signs all come when we're having a new season start, but the mutable signs mutate the energy for that change of the seasons. So this mutable fire we're at the end of fall, right before winter here. And that sign of Sagittarius, that fiery, adaptable energy is literally mutating the energy for us, adapting us, preparing us for winter. So when I talk about, too much, kind of fiery action going on, I'm not necessarily talking about like Leo is in the middle of summer where that's just hot. That's just condensed heat. Okay. This is the kind of heat that could, for some people, go on internally. Okay. For some people could really ignite some sort of almost like a manic feeling, because it can't even what do I do about this? What do I do about this sort of thing? But at that same time, if we can tap into the faith that can come with this energy, that's, where, and not only that, meditation is such a good thing for people, they got a lot of this fiery sort of spasmodic energy in their natal chart. Meditation is definitely key. That's my opinion. Okay. So there's that. Now let's talk about Mercury, because Mercury is doing something interesting here. So here's Mercury in the sign of Capricorn, which, okay, so Mercury was in Sagittarius too, which was just wild, right? But now Mercury has moved into the sign of Capricorn. And the sign of Capricorn, as I mentioned, it's the cardinal earth sign. It's a practical energy. The sign of Capricorn is all about practicality, work, things that are, taking care of our responsibilities, that sort of thing. But because it's in the element of earth, that's actually probably really, really nice for Mercury, because at least because there's all this other kind of crazy wildfire stuff going on. So Mercury's kind of like, okay, I'm in a earth sign. I mean, if you just think of earthly people, they tend, I hope you don't understand what I mean by that. Of course, we're all earthly people, but people who have a lot of earth in their natal chart, they tend to speak a little slower. They tend to move slower. They tend to just be good at taking care of, again, like their earth responsibilities, going to work, that sort of thing. Practical. Okay. So Mercury is working practically in the sign of Capricorn. Now, Mercury, he rules our mental function. Okay. Mercury is how we receive information into our consciousness. Mercury files that information somewhere within us. And then when we want to communicate that information, Mercury brings it back out for us to communicate. Okay. So Mercury is a very busy character. And I do feel like, especially with this much, again, wildfire energy going on, Mercury's kind of like, I'm in a sign where I can go slow. Okay. But it's kind of tenfold, because just hours, I think it was 8 hours. Let's see. I think Mercury goes retrograde at very close to 11 p.m. Pacific time. And so it will actually, that's on Tuesday, December 12th. But so for some of you other in other time zones, it's actually on the 13th that Mercury will go retrograde. But before Mercury goes retrograde, what he does is, it's like he's going fast, 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 fast. And then just before, like 5 days before retrograde, he slows down. He starts to go slower, slower, slower. People who are born, for those of you who are studying astrology, this is a really interesting thing to look into. If you look to see if you were born near a Mercury retrograde, so if you were born just before, say hours, within say 12 hours before Mercury retrograde, these people can concentrate. They can focus and stay with this ability to stay focused, to be like concentrating on something, paying attention to the details of things. And so that's what Mercury's doing right before this new moon. He's slowing down in this earth sign. So again, I do feel like that's probably a really good thing, because there's all this wildfire energy going on. So Mercury's supporting our mental function. Not only that, but he's sextile with Venus over here. Should we talk about Venus now? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so here's Venus, who will be in the sign of Scorpio. Okay, so Venus, she's the influencer of love and beauty and aesthetically pleasing things, romance. Okay, Venus can represent any female in your life. Venus can, other than mother, okay? But Venus can be associated with daughter, sister, best friend, that sort of thing. Even if it's, you don't have to, no matter what gender you are, a female in your life, other than mother, can be represented by Venus, okay? She's soft, she's soothing. Venus is a lovely energy. She's a planet of love, right? Well, Scorpio is intense, okay? Scorpio is the sign of transformation, the sign of death and rebirth, the sign that is associated with the underworld, okay, ruled by Pluto and Mars. I love Scorpio. Scorpio is just like very, very intense energy. And so Venus is interesting in Scorpio because she wants to be soothing and romantic, but in the sign of Scorpio, she probably, like, the sex drive is up and that sort of thing, okay? Certainly not for everybody. So it depends on how it's hitting your own natal chart. But I'll go a little further into that. But so she's actually considered debilitated in the sign of Scorpio. If you ever, if you do study astrology, pay attention to this. Here's the sign of Taurus over here, which is opposite Scorpio. Well, Venus rules Taurus. So when something is in the opposite sign than what it rules, it struggles there. Okay, so she does struggle in this. She just doesn't get to be the way that she would normally be, okay, in the sign of Scorpio. But when I know plenty of people who have Venus in Scorpio, certainly not all of them, but I have witnessed quite a few people with Venus in Scorpio who are just, let's say, not shy about, sexual experiences and that sort of thing. It could be this sort of, it's a very sexy energy, really. But she is making this opportunistic connection with Mercury, which could be great. That's what I'm talking about is this green line right here. That's very close to being a 60-degree angle there. It's about 59 degrees. So that's a very strong sextile. So Mercury and Venus are getting along at the time of this new moon. So that's nice. Okay, now the next one I want to talk about, let's get to Jupiter first. I want to talk about the nodes, but there's other things we should talk about first. Okay, so this right here is Jupiter, who is a key player for this new moon because Jupiter, again, rules the sign of Sagittarius. So Jupiter is activated in this. I mean, they're always activated, but he's a little extra activated for this new moon, going through the sign of Taurus in retrograde. Jupiter is in retrograde. I think it's all the way till December 30th. It's like right until the end of December, I believe. But okay, we've talked about this plenty. Jupiter's in the sign of Taurus all the way until, I believe it's May of next year. So we still got a little ways to go with Jupiter going through Taurus. It's a little wacky when he's in retrograde, but overall, okay, if you think about Jupiter, the great benefic, okay, he's also the great expander. Jupiter rules the arteries. Jupiter also rules fat, okay, and that's good fat or bad fat. Now, the sign of Taurus is a sign of food, okay, so there can be, if you've got something strong in your natal chart near 6 degrees Taurus, you could be experiencing all kinds of abundance, like great things happening, grand things happening in your life. But there can also be this tendency to overindulge, okay? And that very much could be applied to food going into the body, which is, of course, if you're eating healthy food, that's perfect. But if you're somebody who doesn't eat very healthy and this is hitting something in your chart, you might want to be a little bit mindful of that, not just because you could expand at the waistline, but also because you could be causing damage to things like your arteries and that sort of thing. So just being smart about this stuff. There's that. But again, it could be all kinds of, I actually know somebody who's got their sun at near 6 degrees Taurus, and it seems all kinds of wonderful things are going on for this individual. Okay, so there's that. I'm actually going to come back and point this. I'm going to say one more thing about this Venus and Scorpio, because I'm going to tie these guys together in a moment. So if you have something in your natal chart, like I was talking about this Venus and Scorpio being intense, but if you have something in your natal chart near 9 degrees Scorpio, keep in mind that Venus she's floating around that stuff, whatever it is that you've got. If you've got your sun near 9 degrees Scorpio, if you've got your Mercury near 9 degrees Scorpio, Venus is the bringer of love and beauty and aesthetically pleasing things, is sitting on that thing in your natal chart and could be bringing some lovely energy into your life. Again, she's a little debilitated. However, she's also getting a little bit of support here. The reason for that is there's this opposition going on between, here's Venus, here's Jupiter. This is opposition going on, but this is Venus's sign. It's basically like Jupiter's kind of helping Venus out because Jupiter is in Venus's sign. Okay, so that could, between these two things, if you've got something in your chart near, let's just say anywhere between 3, maybe even 2 degrees Taurus to say 9 degrees Taurus, or 3 degrees Scorpio to 12 degrees Scorpio, then there's this thing going on between the two benefics. Like I keep talking about, Jupiter is a great benefic. Well, Venus is considered like the lesser benefic. She's still a benefic, like a beneficial energy. Venus and Jupiter both. Those are the two like beneficial energies that we get from up there. Not saying we don't get beneficial energies from other things, but those are the ones that are well recognized for the wonderful things they can bring into our life. Okay. And there's this conversation going on. If that's hitting something in your chart, that actually could be a really beautiful thing, but just be mindful about sugary, processed, unhealthy fats. Okay. Now let's see, let's go to Neptune next. All right. So here's Neptune going through the sign of Pisces, 24 degrees Pisces. And we've talked a lot about this. Neptune going through Pisces. I believe that's at least for another couple of years. Neptune going through Pisces, I believe, is all the way till the end of 2025, maybe even a little bit into 2026. Neptune influences the mysticism and spirituality and flowiness and dreams and altered states of consciousness and even drugs, things that kind of bring us into an altered state of consciousness. Neptune rules those things, and he works powerfully in the sign of Pisces because he rules Pisces. I shouldn't say powerfully. It's more like he's just doing what he knows how to do best in the sign of Pisces. He's bringing in the mysticism and the spirituality, but so much so that it can actually lead to things that are confusing, because this is a very, very, very unearthly energy. However, okay, these red lines that go from here to here, that's actually an approaching square. Yeah, that is an approaching square. So that's actually pretty strong. That could be a good thing. Okay, squares have a bad rep in astrology because they can bring internal tension. I'm talking about a 90-degree angle here. Okay, squares can be a little harsh, but this is two mutable signs. Okay, Pisces is mutable, Sagittarius is mutable. The square can a square can bring force. A square can make things happen, okay? And bring kind of like the action that it needs to be ignited, okay? So let's say you're somebody who is manifesting with this new moon. I am manifesting more wisdom into my life. I'm manifesting more faith into my life. Well, here's the bringer of mysticism and spirituality going through the very mystical sign of Pisces, making this square that's actually going to be the moon will make an exact square with Neptune just hours after this new moon. And then a few days after this new moon, the sun will make a perfect square with Neptune here. Okay, that can be like this. It's I'm manifesting these things. I'm manifesting the abundance and the faith and blah, blah, blah. So Neptune can kind of force that with some sort of a spiritual practice. Like, I've been wanting to start meditating for so long now, or I want to start doing yoga. I've been trying to do yoga for so long. Then all of a sudden, this square happens, especially if it's hitting something in your chart, and it forces it to happen. It makes it happen. So that can be a good thing. Okay, now let's talk about Saturn also going through Pisces. And let's see here. What's Saturn doing with this new moon? He's making a quintile. That's interesting. Okay, so Saturn, the bringer of hard reality. Okay, Saturn is the rules over things that require discipline, and Saturn is restrictive. He's a little harsh. Saturn's great because he will make us do things that are, require some discipline. Okay, like I said, I signed the contract to move into this place the day Saturn went direct in my house of home. It was so interesting, and that was not planned. I didn't plan that. It was just, that's when they said, "Hey, do you want to sign it?" But he'll make things happen like that. And it was an uneasy feeling for me. It was very, it's a nervous feeling. But at the same time, it made sense. Okay. Saturn will do things like that. He'll make you turn in that job application that you've been, putting off, or he will make you, clean the house or something like that. Saturn's like, it'll make you do things that it's not fun to do. Some people, I was just following this lady just looking at this lady on Instagram. I forget what her hashtag was, or her handle was, but she was like the clean lady or something like that. And she just randomly goes to places. She was actually cleaning a headstone, like a headstone that was completely covered, and it's just out of her own free time. She'll go to public restrooms and clean them. It's just, she must have a strong Saturn in her chart or something. But so she clearly loves cleaning, enjoys cleaning. So I don't mean to say that Saturn, but if you're somebody who doesn't like cleaning the house, and all of a sudden Saturn comes up and hits something in your chart, it's like, okay, I have to do this. Saturn will do that, especially actually a Saturn and Mars together will do that even more. Okay, so anyway, I'm rambling. So Saturn at 1 degree Pisces is bringing the hard reality, bringing the harsh reality to this Piscean energy. See, Pisces is the sign that is more inclined to spiritual stuff than the hard reality of this physical experience. Now, no, I am not suggesting that everybody who's a Pisces is like that, because there's, again, so much more to the natal chart. But this is, it's not a comfortable place for Saturn, but at the same time, I think it's a good thing. I do think that this is, oh boy, bringing the sorrowful energy to our conscious awareness in the world. So Pisces is a sign that is very strongly associated with things that are sorrowful, okay, because it feels everything so deeply. But Saturn is bringing some of the sorrowful energy into our conscious awareness while going through Pisces for the next, 2.5 years at this point. Saturn is in Pisces till the end of February of 2026. So that's a long transit. But if Saturn's hitting something in your chart, and all of a sudden it feels like, oh, like life is hard, something just, doesn't feel good, something doesn't feel right, it's because Saturn's trying to make you do something. Saturn's trying to make you take care of that responsibility that you've been putting off. Now, this quintile aspect that's going from Saturn to this new moon, I'm talking about these pink lines right here. I don't normally point these out, but I'm going to today. Because they're considered a minor aspect. They're just not nearly as prominent as the squares and the oppositions and the trines and that sort of thing. But some astrologers would argue that they are just as strong as those. So here we go. The quintile, like that, the definition for these quintile aspects is like spiritual in dimension. It's out of this realm. I mean, it's like it's in the spiritual dimension. They're almost very difficult to explain. A lot of people who've got a whole bunch of quintile aspects in their natal chart are very connected to spiritual stuff, like whether they want to be or not. They're the kind of people that will, see things that other people can't see, that sort of thing. These quintile aspects are actually quite fascinating once you really get into them and study them. But that could be kind of like this, that could be kind of making this, because it's Saturn's like, okay, we have to be serious about this. But at the same time, there's all this magic around it. So it's like it's almost like being able to prove the metaphysical benefits from crystals. Saturn actually rules the structure of gemstones, crystals, minerals. And Pisces has more rulership of the, the mystical connection with crystals and that sort of thing. And then this quintile aspect going over to the new sun and moon is almost like it's like bringing the two together, bringing the stuff that, is, I'm going to go with the word deniable. Like some people are like, oh, gemstones don't do anything. Well, this kind of thing can prove to somebody that they do work, that they do, that a certain stone can bring protection and certain stones will amplify a situation. All right. So there's that. Where shall we go next? Let's talk about Uranus also going through Taurus over here. Okay, so Uranus is another one we've been talking about for a while. Uranus is going through Taurus. That's another one. I believe it's all the way till the end of 2025. So it's another couple of years at least. So Uranus brings the like spasmodic changes. Uranus wants freedom. It's interesting too, because the sign of Sagittarius also wants freedom. Like sign of Sagittarius, you don't ever want to make a Sagittarius hold still and force them to do something that they don't get to be free and move their body all over the place. So does Uranus, but in a different way. I'm talking about that sign of Sagittarius likes freedom to be free. But Uranus likes freedom that's like, it will free you from something that held you down. Like Uranus is like when somebody is locked up in jail or something for something that like they didn't do, or they just don't deserve that sentence that they got, that sort of thing. And then they finally prove to the courts that they don't deserve to be locked up and they get to be free. Spasmodic, but it'll happen like, oh, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that's Uranus. Uranus is very, whoa, it just out with the old ways of doing things, in with this new way of doing things. Uranus rules things like technology. Uranus rules things that are revolutionary and also tends to like to do things in group. Going to take that example. And part of the reason I came into mind is because I actually have a friend who, I'm just going to say, a friend who is in jail right now for reasons that are just entirely unfair. It's just absolutely appalling. I'll probably cry if I talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I keep thinking of, when is this person going to be free from this crap? And I'm thinking to myself, maybe we just need to get a group of people together and stand up for this person. And 100 people write letters to the courthouse saying this is not right. This person doesn't deserve this. Uranus would influence the gathering of the people to do that. That Uranus likes to do that. People who are revolutionary and want freedom, like freedom from constraints that are just kind of ridiculous. Like there's a lot of really, really ridiculous laws and rules that don't allow people from doing things that they should be able to do freely. Okay. Of course, there's some things that should be, limited or whatever, but I'm not trying to say full on anarchy here. Maybe, but actually Uranus, I could see influencing anarchy, that sort of thing, because Uranus wants the freedom, does not want to be held tight. Okay. So here we have Uranus going through the sign of Taurus in retrograde. Oh boy, I don't remember when Uranus goes stationary. It's not till January of next year. I believe Uranus is in retrograde all the way till January. But going through the sign of Taurus. Taurus is the fixed earth sign. Taurus doesn't want the spasmodic changes. Taurus, when I say fixed, I'm talking about steadfast. I do things slowly but persistently. Okay. And Uranus is like this full on zapping that sign of Taurus and in retrograde. And these guys, this has a lot to do with a lot of the chaos that's going on in the world. The sign of, Uranus entered into the sign of Taurus. I believe it was I think it was 2018. I think it was early 2018 when Uranus entered Taurus. And I mean, even though I certainly can't put all the 2020 stuff, all of everything that went on in 2020, I can't put all that on Uranus and Taurus at all. We had all kinds of wild stuff going on during that time. whew, that was a wild time. But I do think Uranus and Taurus played a role in the chaos. Okay. Now there's this inconjunct aspect, a very strong, I mean, it's a fading inconjunct aspect, so it could be stronger, but it's still pretty darn strong. Uranus is at 19 degrees and 55 minutes. These guys over here are 20 degrees, 40 minutes. Okay, so it's a very, very strong inconjunct aspect, this brown line, 150-degree angle. So that makes it's sometimes described as a blind spot. Okay, like this, they can't really see each other. They need to be integrated. So with that said, that's something that you can definitely be taking into consideration when you're writing down your new moon manifestations, is I integrate the revolutionary changes that are going on in this world with this new moon manifestation. I'm integrating the freedom, the freedom, in whatever way you think of that. Are you talking about your own personal freedom? Are you talking about freedom for the people, or whatever it is, however that resonates with you, that definitely can be brought in to this, new moon, what you're manifesting to bring into fruition here. Okay, now we'll do Pluto real quick here. So Pluto, no longer retrograde, 28 degrees Capricorn. Whoop, it is getting close to the 29th degree again. Some of you have heard me talk about this. Okay, so Pluto, the bringer of very powerful, destructive transformation. Slow, painful, powerful, painful transformation. The reason I'm putting out the word slow is because Uranus is like abrupt changes. Pluto's like, oh, I'm going to make this hurt. I'm going to make it go real slow. I'm going to make it hurt. But he's also the bringer of power. Okay, now he is just in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn rules over the structure of our civilization. Capricorn rules over, which is very interesting, things like traditions. Okay, Capricorn falls like basically, a time where a lot of holidays take place. Okay, not everybody celebrates Christmas and that sort of thing, but it's like the traditions. Okay, we have seen a major change in the way people celebrate these holidays. It's just the traditions are kind of crumbling. Don't get me wrong. Some people are still going out and getting their tree and, hanging the decorations and wrapping presents and that sort of thing. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are changing the way that they celebrate these traditions. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Pluto's been going through Capricorn since 2008. And well, I said this so many times. I'm just so sorry to get repetitive, but in 2024, the beginning of 2024, Pluto will enter into Aquarius briefly, a little bit further into the sign of Aquarius, but then retrograde back into the sign of Capricorn until December of 2024. So basically, Pluto is at these final degrees of Capricorn, just finishing up, but he's got to come back and do it again one more time. This is wild, considering that 2024 is having elections. Okay, this is, oh my gosh, the sign of Capricorn rules over our government. Okay, things that are authoritative. Okay, so there's this destructive, powerful transformation going on, especially once Pluto gets to that 29th degree again. That's the anaretic degree. That's the last degree, and that's tends to be a very powerful degree. So there is really a lot going on there. Not only that, but Pluto is still squaring these new nodes. It's kind of a weak square, but those nodes, I'm going to get to those next. Their connection to Pluto is really making the transformation just, it's forcing it. It's forcing it. Okay. Should I go into the nodes yet? I think, let me just point out Chiron and then I'll get to the nodes. I'm excited to talk about the nodes. I always am, but there's a reason for it. Okay, so this right here is Chiron. Chiron, the wounded healer, going through the sign of Aries. Now, Aries is the cardinal fire sign that's like the warrior. Okay, so let's all, and not only that, but it's a sign of self. So let's all set the intention. Chiron's going through Aries. That's a long one. I think it's all the way till 2026 or 2027. But it's still a really good time to be doing the self-healing work. Okay, especially if if Chiron's hitting something in your chart. I've been giving a lot of readings to people lately who are having a Chiron return, and they're on this incredible healing journey, like for themselves. Now, again, as I've said before, I am not trying to say that you shouldn't be seeking help on your healing journey. It's always helpful to have some guidance, but to have yourself kick in the warrior attitude. I'm healing this body of mine. I'm healing this consciousness, all sorts of things going on. Okay, now finally the nodes. So the reason I was so excited to talk about them is because this is like the best aspect for this transit. So again, here's the sun and the moon at 20 degrees Sagittarius. They are harmonizing with the north node over here at 23 degrees Aries. So again, Sagittarius is a fire sign, Aries is a fire sign. They're harmonizing together, this fiery, harmonious energy. The north node, and again, Aries is the sign of self. Aries is the warrior of the zodiac, and this north node is what brings celestial energy in. So, and not only that, but it has, this north node is, even in kind of a little bit of a corny description here, the north node is kind of associated with like our destiny, okay, the direction we want to be going in, okay, and it's going through the sign of the warrior, okay, but they're harmonizing with this new moon. That's what I was saying in the beginning of this. If you've got something in your chart that's near 20 degrees Sagittarius or near 20 degrees Aries, but even near 20 degrees Leo, all three of those fire signs near the 20-degree point, say even going from like 19 to 25 degrees, this new moon is activating that in your chart. So that's fantastic. Not only that, but it's also making the sextile aspect with this down here, the south node, which is the drain point. Okay, so energy comes in through the north node, goes out through the south node, and the north node is harmonizing with the new moon. The south node is having this opportunistic connection with the new moon. The south, sorry, let me repeat that. The south node is the drain point has an opportunistic connection going on with this new moon. So that's a beautiful, not only that, but it's an approaching aspect. Okay, what I mean by that is here's the north node at 23 degrees Aries. Well, just what, maybe 2 hours after this new moon, the moon will be at 23 degrees Aries. There'll be an exact trine over to the north node and an exact sextile down to the south node. And then just a few days after this new moon, the sun will do the same thing, make that exact trine and that exact sextile. So it's even stronger when it's approaching versus if the exact aspect already happened. It's stronger when it's approaching than it is if the perfect aspect already happened. Again, I totally get it. Some of the things I say are going to go way over some people's heads, but other people, for you guys who are advanced, I love to drop little golden nuggets for you guys. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. Now we will talk about body parts. Okay, so the sign of Sagittarius basically rules even parts of the buttocks, even parts of like the very bottom of the spinal cord, basically the hips, okay, all the way down to the top of the knees. The hips, the coccyx, the sciatic nerve, okay, that whole area of our body. That a lot of times when people have a big heavy dose of Sagittarius energy in their natal chart, they'll have like curvy hips, they'll have bigger hips, because that's that sign of Sagittarius. It has a lot to do with that whole hip area. But on that note, that sign of Sagittarius also rules the femur. A lot of people have got, let's say, a challenged Sagittarius energy in their natal chart will end up having a broken femur in their life or something with their coccyx. There's, like I said, I'm a Sagittarius rising, and I've had stuff go on in that area of my body, sciatic nerve issues up the wazoo when I was younger. I know how to take care of it now, but regardless. So with that said, if you're somebody, I know a lot of people deal with sciatic nerve conditions. For that, I'm not a doctor. I'm not offering any kind of medical advice whatsoever. But of course, like I just mentioned, I've had to deal with this stuff a lot throughout my life. And I've kind of learned some things to just help myself overall, so I don't have to deal with that sciatic nerve pain. But I have had really good experiences from wild yam. And what was the other one I wanted to mention here as well? It'll come to me. There's a few I want to talk about here. Blue vervain. That's another one that could be good for the sciatic nerve and overall just calming. So also this sign of Sagittarius is like the efferent nerves. Okay. The efferent nerves are the nerves that take the message from the spinal cord out to the muscles. So a lot of people have got, say this is hitting something in your chart. I mean, you could totally be dealing with like restless leg syndrome or just like, I know it's the whole restless leg syndrome thing is almost like, I don't know, it's strange to me, but at the same time, I get it. Cause it's like, I got to go do something. I have to, I like laying in bed. My knees are shaking because I'm antsy to go do something. And a lot of people, again, if this is hitting something in your chart, or you just have a lot of Sagittarius energy in your chart, you might be like that. Okay. So wild yam and the blue vervain could be both good for both of those things. But another one that's really good is lemon balm. Lemon balm is, it can kind of soothe the almost like kind of manic energy. This is the sign of Sagittarius. Again, it's super fun and optimistic and wild and that sort of thing. But it can also be like sometimes people who've got a lot of very strong Sagittarius energy in their natal chart, they can almost have this tendency to almost be, I almost use the word like bipolar, but I don't know if that's necessarily it. It's almost like on rampage. I got to go. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And then, a few days later, just completely crashed because they overexerted themselves. So all of those things I mentioned can be beneficial for somebody who deals with that kind of, spasmodic type of energy in your life, but also just thinking about overall taking care of these parts of our body. I know a lot of you out there doing yoga poses and all sorts of things. Just be gentle with those parts of our body during this lunar transit. Definitely, wouldn't want to stretch too hard, wouldn't want to get a little too rambunctious about it, that sort of thing. I've seen people like showing off at yoga, doing yoga in large groups, and every once in a while you'll see the show off that's doing something, and lo and behold, they end up hurting themselves because they're pushing too hard. So just be mindful of that with this kind of transit. Okay, did I mention all that stuff? I think I did. All right, so gemstones. So the dedicated zodiacal birthstone for the sign of Sagittarius is turquoise. So I had to put my turquoise on today. So turquoise, I think I mentioned this earlier, turquoise can help people to foresee, but it's also a very protective stone. I'm telling you, I don't want to go too much further into detail because I've already kind of told some of this story, but over the past couple of years, I have had some very strange experiences happen. I broke a total of, actually it was 2 turquoise rings and a turquoise little pendant that all 3 of them broke in very strange situations. And it made me feel like I was being protected. It made me feel like the stone is what broke rather than something in my body or around my body or something like that breaking. So turquoise can be very, very protective. Again, can also help to foresee. Very protective stone. Turquoise is kind of like one of those stones that is a kind of a all reliable. I think turquoise, I can't think of a single natal chart that turquoise would not be supportive for. But especially if you're a Sagittarius rising, turquoise is an excellent stone. But another one that I thought I'd mention here is lapis lazuli. This is my lapis pendant. Some of you have maybe seen me wear this. I love lapis. In fact, I've been wearing this a lot lately just because this whole moving thing has been, I mean, if I'm being totally honest, I've actually cried a lot because there's a lot of emotional stuff coming up, but it's just been like unnerving, a lot of just unsettled feelings, good things, very, very good things. But at the same time, just, I haven't felt that way in a long time. Lapis is my go-to for that sort of thing. Lapis is very, very protective. It's got pyrite in it. And the reason I bought this stone, this is one of the very few stones or pendants that I have bought for myself. Other stuff has come from either a gift or bartering people readings or that sort of thing. But this is one I bought for myself way back in 2000. I want to say even before that, I want to say 2015, maybe, because I was going through a very, very, very hard time in my life. It was like $73 or something, which was well out of what I could really afford at the time. But I saw it and I knew I needed it and I got it. And I'm glad I did, even though I kind of had to take away from other things that I should have been spending the money on. But I'm very glad I did. One reason that I really like this is because it's open in the background. If you're looking for something like an overall just pendant to keep, just, you're not somebody who wants to change your necklaces all the time, which I completely get that. I'm usually like that. I only change my necklaces for these videos. But if you're somebody who's just looking for like an overall protective stone for yourself, honestly, turquoise or lapis especially if it's open in the back. That can go for a ring too. And unfortunately, a lot of jewelry doesn't come like that. And that's part of the reason. And not only that, but it's big. Oh boy, I wish I could direct you guys to this video. What was his name? There was a guy who went by the Earth Keeper, I think his name was, and he did all these talks. He had a connection with Edgar Casey. Oh boy, I wish I could remember his name. If I can remember the name of this guy, or like the link that, or find it on YouTube, the link that I watched on this guy, this talk that he had on these gemstones, he went into detail on lapis lazuli, and he talked a lot about oh geez, I can't even remember all this stuff he talked about. He talked about how it all connects through the platonic solids and all kinds of really, really neat stuff. And after I watched that video, that's what made me realize I need a big piece of lapis. Okay, so there's that. Now another one, did I get him? Yeah, they're there. Another one that resonates very well with the sign of Sagittarius is, as some of you know, one of my favorites, Herkimer's. Herkimer diamonds. Okay, no, they are not real diamonds at all. They are a form of quartz. They've got some sort of, I forget what it's called, but there's these little tiny black dots that are in the middle of that. Maybe the camera will pick it up. Here's one that's got more. And the black dots are what make it a protective stone. See, like clear crystal quartz is not protective. It can be cleansing, but it's an amplifier. And as you can see, these are a form of crystal quartz, but they can amplify, but those little black dots in there also make it a protective stone. Now, these ones, for myself, have enhanced the intuition almost too much sometimes. I had some very strange experiences working with, I like to work in trinities. I like to take three of the, and not only that, but they're super affordable. The reason they're called Herkimer diamonds, they were discovered in Herkimer, New York. At least this is the story anyway. They by a bunch of miners, and they thought that they were real diamonds because they were so shiny, so glittery. And then it turns out no, they're just a certain kind of form of crystal quartz, but they're super shiny. And these have enhanced my intuition. I mean, again, sometimes it's almost been too much, but they're very affordable. They're very, I mean, yeah, a couple of those little stones for like $3, and they're powerful. I'm telling you, at least from my experience anyway. And I understand not everybody's the same. Some people are going to have different experiences with different gemstones and so on and so forth. So there's that. As usual, I will leave a full extensive list of Sagittarius stones in the description below. And if you'd like to schedule an astrology reading, you can visit erinwageastrology.com. I also do have gift certificates available on my website. You just look at the top of my website, because I know a lot of people are doing gift exchanges right now. So there's that. And until next time, and I am in my new place, namaste to all of you.